Welcome to the Build It Better podcast. I'm Robert Johnson. Oh, by the way, it is powered by FrameCat. I'm Robert Johnson, your host, and today we are welcoming from BLUvera in the balmy state of Minnesota. Is that where you're at?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. We have David Victor. David Victor is senior manufacturing engineer, for BLUvera. Welcome, David.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I've been commenting before we got started here how great it looks in the background. Thanks, guys. Good job. Let's start off by telling us a little bit about the BLUvera, what they do, your role with BLUvera, and then we'll delve into a little bit about parent company and go from there.
Sure thing. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so BLUvera was established in 2018 as a manufacturer of manufactured goods for construction. So really what that means for us is several things. We focus on exterior building enclosure is one of our main areas of business. So that's where you'd have a balloon frame building, and we're producing panels on our frame CAD machines.
What some
And
refer to as facades.
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely. And so those panels get framed in our shop, and we add as much scope as we can. Those get sent to site and then installed on the side of the building. So that's one big area of business for us. And I would say that's almost half of what we do. The other is light gauge structure.
Okay.
So we do, and everything we do is in the commercial space, right? So it's multifamily, it's hospitality, so hotels, some sports and entertainment stuff. We've done. For Penn State, we did an enclosed football training facility.
Okay.
For
So
them.
mid-rise, multi-story stuff. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Our sweet spot typically, especially for light gauge structure, would be between 6 and 10 levels.
See, and we'll get into why that's different for you. Everybody else says, our sweet spot's 3 to 5, But yeah, we'll talk about that more in a minute. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, for sure. So yeah, all of our light gauge structure is in that size range.
Okay.
So there's a few other things we do too. We do some door and hardware kitting and installation for the project site. So, and what that would entail is you can imagine how many doors you'd have in a 10-story building. It's really complex to do on site. So what we provide, the service we provide, is we're installing the hinges, the handle sets, the closers, installing windows, and then stacking them in the order they need, so that they can really streamline that installation process on site. We've done a few bathroom pods. It's not a big area of our business right now, but we've started to delve into a little bit of that as well.
Is it mostly from a self-performing perspective? Are you doing it for other GCs and developers?
Yeah, so we only supply to our parent company. So we work for.
And your parent company is a pretty small general contractor.
Mortensen Construction. Yeah, exactly. So $6 billion construction company. We're their manufacturing arm.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Man, that's impressive. So you are doing supplying pre-finished panels on your balloon framing stuff?
Yep, we'll go all the way. So, and really a big one of the things we really like to do is add scope. So if you think about because we work for a GC that's national in the United States, we're all across the nation, and we bid on jobs all across the nation.
So you're shipping nationally.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So how do we make that valuable? It's scope. Right. So we're taking as much scope as we can in terms of what's feasible, what makes sense for the project team, so on and so forth.
Sure. But basically what you're telling me is that you're leveraging the prefabrication aspect of it to its fullest. I mean, that's what you're trying to do is make it truly a prefabricated solution. There's various levels from framed wall panels to pre-finished with windows and all that stuff in it. So you're just adding everything that makes sense from a production standpoint and a
Hmm.
prefab standpoint, and incorporating that in what you're doing on your projects. Very
Yep.
cool.
Hmm.
Do you know? Can you share with us what was it that pushed Mortensen to into the prefab market and to take the step for purchasing roll forming equipment?
Yeah. So, I think Mortenson's a very innovative company.
Hmm.
So, looking towards the future, how they were kind of seeing the writing on the wall in terms of how do we deal with labor shortages in the field. Um, but I do think that one of the big drivers too for them was just the safety component of it. Um, are the three things we focus on here is being safer, faster, and more predictable.
Hmm.
So that's we everything I do on a
In
daily
that order.
basis. Yep, exactly. Everything that I do on a daily basis is really pushing towards those three things. Our frame CAD machines address all three of those simultaneously. So, um, there's a lot of driving forces behind why Mortensen would want to start what we're doing, but I think that safety is a big one of them. Quality, all of that.
Yeah, and there's so much wisdom and focusing on the safety aspect. As you know those mod ratings for insurance can make or break subcontractors. Do make or break
Right.
subcontractors.
Hmm.
General contractors all the way up. So there's so much wisdom. Besides the fact that you want people to go home to their families every day,
Yeah.
all in one piece. There's just so many things there. One of the things I'd like you to address, which I find this is embarrassing for me to say, it's something that should be a strong point, but something we don't talk enough about here,
Hmm.
is the safety that the system. You mentioned the frame CAD systems and providing safety.
Hmm.
How do you see that? Where do you see it, and where are you really leveraging that?
Yeah, so I think in terms of the frame CAD machines, and there's a lot of areas of what we do in terms of safety that are big advantages, but
Hmm.
specifically speaking about the frame CAD machines,
Okay.
it's the fact that if you were to so let's say you're going to use stick cold form steel and you're going to stick frame it,
Yep.
you're going to get a pile of stock material, right? And you're going to get studs and tracks.
Hmm.
Sometimes if you plan ahead and do some takeoffs, you might get a cut to length, maybe. But typically, even if you do, you're not going to have stuff cut to length for your ROs. Um,
Right.
so you have this pile of material and you're making cuts. You're making cuts for a big portion of it, if not all of it.
Hmm.
And so that alone, the fact that you're not using a grinder or a chop saw to make your cuts is a huge advantage. We're not making sparks. Our team members, the goal for our team members here in our factory is how do we reduce their exposure to things that are unsafe, right? So, and that's the easiest way to approach a safer environment. How do we
Hmm.
just remove the risk?
Correct.
Um, and I don't remember the It's been a while since I've looked, but you've got from grinders and chop saws, you get what 10,000 injuries a year
Yeah,
in the
it's
U.S.
stupid. Yeah.
It's a lot. So that's 20 a day. I don't know what it is. It's a lot. So if we can just take that out of what we do, we're really making a safer environment just inherently without
Yeah.
having to worry about the procedures. Now we do a lot to address that too, but the FrameCAD system takes all of the cutting and grinding out of it.
Yeah, and I mean, so expounding on that, as it incorporates into the rest of the process for assembly and all those things, you're not having to use C clamps. You're not trying to
Hmm.
shove a screw that's falling off and bashing a hand into, all those things that are inherent without using a system that's punching and dimpling. And it's a phrase I'm going to have to stop using, but we tend to think of our system as dumbing down the process so that
Hmm.
the entry level skilled people, the less skilled people, can get into the market and easier, and
Yeah.
learn something new that's not necessarily something that people out there are aware of.
Hmm.
But yeah, it builds that the whole prefab process really lends itself to a safer environment. You're in a controlled environment. I
Yes.
would assume you have pretty strict safety guidelines in your factory.
Yes, we do.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
here's the other thing too, right? We aren't perfect. So safety culture is the most important part. So developing a culture of, if you see something, say something. Empowering our production workers to feel like they can say something without, um, you know, saying without just that we'll accept it, right? That we'll take it and we'll listen. So I think as we've grown as an organization, I think our responses to injuries that have occurred are good. So it's showing that our safety culture is one that's we're where we need to be. Not that it can't get better,
Sure.
but
It sounds like you really take a holistic, a real hands-on team approach for continuous improvement,
mhm, yeah,
from safety through processes, I would assume, all the way through.
yeah.
How is that encouraged, and am I correct in stating that that's the case?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm not, um, we've got a whole Mortensen safety team that we rely on.
Hmm.
There's a lot of really smart people that are helping us out. Um, and the same with continuous improvement, right? We've got lean experts that we can rely on. That's one really big advantage we have being connected to Mortensen, is just having those resources available to us.
Hmm.
And that established culture, right? So we adopted what Mortensen has been doing for the past nearly 70 years, right? So and that as that process for them has evolved, you get better resources and better backing, right? The training and the what works and what doesn't.
Hmm.
We're able to lean on that, and then pass that on to our production workers. A lot of the people we hire, and back to your point about bringing construction or fabrication to folks that may not have had access to that in the in
Hmm.
previously.
Hmm.
um, I- you know they don't necessarily understand or have had exposure to that level of safety and quality and all of those things. So
No, not at all.
um, it's about bringing them up to speed to understand what we expect of them, to keep them safe, and then empowering them to say something if they see a room for improvement.
Yeah, and if we do believe in what we're doing, in the systems that we're doing, in the way we're doing it, we are, you know, it's the future of construction. This is where
Hmm.
we feel so solidly that construction is going. And if that's the case, by bringing people into it now, and we're creating our next generation's journeyman carpenters in a completely different field that you know their dads and brothers and mothers and sisters have never seen or experienced. So it's
Right.
really cool stuff. It's kind of a melding technology
Hmm.
with construction, and I think it's only going to get better and more fun, as time
Absolutely.
goes on. How are
Yeah.
you guys on technology? Are you strong technology early adopters? Really kick the tires? What's your
Yeah.
feeling on all that?
Yeah. Yeah. So we're a fairly young organization. So we were established 2018. We came under one roof here in St. Paul, Minnesota, in 2020. So we're really only about 3 years old in terms of being in this factory. So it's hard to develop all of the things that you need for technology. So in terms of like panel tracking, how do we track our workflow, right? All of that now is just starting to come online and all of that. So we use iPads for all of
Sure.
our quality inspections. So that's where we rely on that technology. Um, we've for our FrameCAD machines, we actually had some of the software team with FrameCAD. We're able to make it such that we can have a TV screen attached. to the HMI on the machine itself.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the panels we build are, because we're commercial construction, we're running a big 950 machine. So some of the panels are pretty big, so it's hard to see. So we've got a 70-inch monitor instead of the
Oh, very cool.
small monitor. Just allows them to not have to zoom in and to see panel number or stick numbers and stuff like that.
I get it.
Um,
Do you guys do your own design work in house?
we do not. We do
Okay.
not. We have a third party that
Yeah.
helps us with that.
What's your feeling on that? As you know, you're very, very up to speed on what FrameCAD does and the
Hmm.
process. A lot of the early adopters are people that are just getting into it. That's a real point where they struggle.
Yep.
And I'm sure being able to scale or size or capabilities certainly lends itself to different solutions as well. But
Hmm.
what's your feeling on that with the design in house? And
Hmm.
can you explain kind of what the process is and how you do it?
Yeah. Yeah, so we rely on a third party structural engineer
Mm-hmm.
to do all our design. I think there's a couple reasons for that. I think the big one is just it's such a heavy lift coordination wise,
Mm-hmm.
that being a young company, we just haven't grown enough to take that on ourselves. Not that we wouldn't someday, but I don't see that happening anytime soon for us.
Do they take it all the way through to your RFY file, or are they just providing you for the
Yeah,
lack of a better term, that structural piece that you are then taking and handling in the detailer aspects?
yeah. So they'll give us an FCP. So they'll give us a detailer file.
Oh,
So
very
it's
cool.
fully detailed. And then myself and we've got another manufacturing engineer as well, who one of the two of us will go through that file and scrub it up a bit. Check
Yeah.
for manufacturability and other quality checks, and then we send it out to the machines.
Okay. You had to say you had to give the numbers there. So you have a 950 system, an ST 950H.
Got
You
an
have a
ST950H. Yep. That's
550 and a
mm-hmm.
325i.
Yep.
What profiles does your 550 and 325i? What's it set up for?
Yep. So we've got the 325 set up for 3 and 5 by 1 and 5
Okay.
in 18 or 20 gauge.
Okay.
And then the 550H would run 6 by 1 and 5
Okay.
in 3 different gauges. So you're gonna go anywhere from 18 to 14 gauge on that machine.
Now your 950, and I just found this out this past
Mm-hmm.
week accidentally. Your
Mm-hmm.
950, what are the profiles you're turning on the 950?
Uh, so yeah, so there's quite a
Web
few.
thickness first. I want
Yeah.
to get into the flange because the flange is the one that I found out and I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah. So we we have the capabilities of making over 85 stud profiles, true stud S profiles on the machine. We
Hmm.
don't use every one of those, right?
Correct.
I would say that most common would be 6-inch web, anywhere from 2.5, 3.5,
Yeah, see
and then
that's where it gets cool. A 3 and 3.5 inch flange,
yeah,
man, that takes away so much steel that the guys
hmm
that don't have that capability are out there. It just increases the size of those stud packs. When you're doing a
right,
load bearing mid rise,
yeah,
which is what allows you to do those taller buildings.
hmm
What's
yep.
the tallest you've done load bearing?
So the tall we've done 9-story.
You have
Is
done a 9-story full load, not on a podium, 9 stories.
so yeah, it's on a podium. It's on a
Okay.
podium.
So how many of light gauge steel?
We'd have 7/2
Okay.
was that project.
Still 7 floors
Hmm.
of light gauge. Um, do you work to get rid of structural steel, or do you guys also handle the structural steel components in house?
Um, we worked to get away from that.
Okay.
Yeah, so
So
we're trying. So our structural engineering partner, they're really trying to do it as much in cold form
to
as we can.
design that out as much as possible.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Uh, us here too. I mean, at least that's
Yeah.
been my experience. We've always tried to do.
Yep. And there's a
Dar-
balance, right? So
yeah.
what we're trying to figure out now, and again, we're a young organization. We're still trying to find our way in terms of what we do and how we do it. That's part of growing. That's the fun part for us. So, there's a line to which does it make sense if this is going to be an odd profile? Does it make sense to change that machine over and run it, or should I use structural steel? That's one of the things that we're starting to we're facing that realization is okay, maybe we need to start looking at a little more of that. Whereas previously our mindset was okay, we've got the shiny new machine, let's do everything we can with it.
Correct.
And that doesn't always that might not always make sense.
Yeah. Um, I've heard that from others that have picked up the larger systems, and it's
Hmm.
been, their hopes were they could eliminate it all.
Right.
But if you're a custom home builder and you're building a 2-story structure that's got 30-foot sliders downstairs, you're not going to be able to do that unless you just put a monster chunk of cold form steel across there.
Yeah. Right.
So structural steel, it just makes sense and is most
Yeah.
economical and the whole thing. So,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
um,
we're really trying to, and you know, there's a balance to all of that. We're trying to find the line in the sand with the big machine. I think that really where we find ourselves using that machine most are just for the wider web profiles these days. So we're
yeah,
doing, when we say cold form, we mean all of it. So we're doing floor cassettes and everything.
that's what I was going to ask. Yeah. So,
So yeah, so 10x2, we run quite a bit of that as well.
wow.
8x2 as well.
What's the most exciting, the coolest project that you've worked on that you just, yeah, you're shaking your head. There clearly
Yeah.
is one, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot. I think what's cool about Mortensen, and this is also what makes what I do and what we do challenging,
Hmm.
and that's that we don't really have a standard product necessarily. So Mortensen does a lot of really custom
Yeah.
buildings, right? So because of that, one that comes to mind, our last cold form structure that we just wrapped up, it was a hotel, 7/2, and that building had a radius to it. So all
Ah,
of our floor cassettes, right, are a trapezoid. Um, so and there's some unique challenges that come along with that.
yeah.
But architecturally speaking, um, really cool design and a cool opportunity to try to execute that out of cold form.
Oh, yeah.
I think the other thing too that has been really cool to see is our use of three-dimensional shapes with
Hmm.
cold form steel. So um, canopies, soffits, things like that, where we can prefabricate that here in a controlled environment.
Yeah.
Add a bunch of scope, right? So parapet cap, um, insulation inside of it,
Hmm.
whatever we can. Um, doing that in a controlled environment. If you think, we talked about safety here at the shop. If we think about safety for our customers and site team,
Yeah.
um, how much time would they be in a boom lift doing that on the outside of
Yeah.
a
And
building?
all of the pieces of equipment that would be
Yeah,
needed for that, it just, man, it takes away so much when that happens.
it really does. And we ship everywhere. We ship across the U.S., but a lot of our projects are here in the Midwest. So snow, ice, wind, rain, all of that stuff come into play.
Does BLUvera install as well, or are they just the material supplier for the
Yeah,
installation
so
company?
yeah, it's kind of an interesting. Really, our goal is to self-perform installation with a Mortensen team.
Yep.
So we provide superintendent oversight for the installation. Mortensen is providing their labor
Gotcha.
to do that. There's a few reasons why we aim to do that. I think the biggest is trying to build up the skill set of the carpenters that we have in the field, that so we can
Yep.
maybe gain some efficiencies from project to project.
No, and
We
that's the win.
right,
That is the win.
yeah. So there's carpenters that have been on several projects, and we see it. We see the gains because they're not reinventing the wheel, having to learn the system. Um, you know, I I don't want to deceive anyone. It's difficult. All right, it can be difficult to do what we do. Um, what what we're doing is making a safer product eliminating risk for the teams. But sometimes it's challenging in terms of material buildup and how do you, those are the challenges we face because it's just different. If you're framing in the field, right, you can just make your correction as you come across.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you have 15 panels, um, all of a sudden an 1/8 inch tolerance plus or minus on a panel becomes an inch, and that can be a problem, right?
Yeah.
So
Very quickly.
yeah, just in a lot of that comes to just as you're setting, not just taking the panel dimension for granted, but check your layout as you go, right? But
Right.
those are the little pieces that you gain from experience that we try to leverage with our install teams.
Yeah, and I find that the more when people start getting involved in, especially on the installation side, I think this was real interesting. They start thinking differently about how they're framing and what they're putting together and what they're able to do. And the feedback that comes from that installation staff is really, really pivotal.
Yeah,
And for it to come back all the time, well, hey, listen, if we had done this, we could have, if you'd incorporated this angle already on the panel, I mean,
yep,
just different things like that. So I
yeah,
think that's where it's really neat is it. And again, that repetition is what's the efficiency of the system is one thing, but then building on those efficiencies, not just for the installers, but all those other MEP people that now have to be involved in it, is
right.
where it really begins to compound and really make the biggest wins. So,
Hmm.
it really exciting stuff. What exciting things are that? What projects or exciting projects can you share with us that you're working on now currently?
Yeah, so our most active project right now out on the production floor is it's a multifamily building. This one's going out to Colorado. So it'll be our first project in Colorado.
Okay.
So this is multifamily. What's interesting and new about this project is we're actually starting to incorporate some of the MEP scopes in our panels. So some unique challenges there, but again, in terms of how do we fill a labor gap? Um, Denver area in Colorado it's booming right now,
Right.
and there's just not a lot of labor available.
Correct.
So we're just experimenting around with how do we help solve that for our project teams. And so what that means is, again, we talked about this early, but just it's more scope in the panel.
So, are you doing, when you get into that, explain to our viewers and listeners, are you having to have inspections done in your factory, or are you just leaving things open that can be inspected once it's installed?
Yep. So yeah. So everything will be inspected and tested once it gets to site.
Gotcha.
We do inspections and testing here as well, which we're going above and beyond in terms of that.
Hmm.
And it's our first time, so we want to get it right. But we have the resources here that are trained on local codes for that jurisdiction
Hmm.
to make sure that we're following the right rules. And because it's different here in Minnesota, you can't just build it the way we would. We need to make sure that the authority having jurisdictions comfortable with the guidelines we're following.
Sure.
So we've brought in the right resources to make that happen.
Right. What have I not asked you that you would like to talk about?
Uh, that's a good question. I think I think for us right now, and I think the industry, the cold form industry in general, I think it's a lot about just talking about safety and starting to develop that culture.
Hmm.
Um, the frame CAD machines themselves are extremely safe. We still follow lockout takeout procedures and all of that stuff,
Hmm.
but I think that technology wise, if you think about how far we've come,
Oh man.
it's pretty crazy what these machines can do, and then doubling down with the safety features that are built in, right? I don't ever worry about when that machine's in a safe state. I don't ever worry about our team members being in there, right?
Correct.
And that's just due to the design.
Mhm.
Um, it's double, triple, quadruple redundant. And so that's part of what drew us to FrameCAD, I think, too, right? Is just that technology and what it
Yeah.
can do. So, and I think, like I said, we're not perfect, but just the culture of, Kevlar sleeves are a good example. I don't see a lot of others using those.
No,
We
no, not at all.
we didn't. So full transparency, we didn't start out with them either. But then someone got a cut and needed some stitches. So,
Right.
at that point, that's where we said, okay, let's rethink this. What do we need to do to keep our team members safe? It was just long sleeves was the rule, but now we realize, well, that's probably not sufficient.
Right.
So, it's not about thinking through every little thing ahead of. You want to do that as much as possible, but like, how do we respond when something occurs? Um, I think that we had an issue on one of our FrameCAD machines where someone got hurt. The machine was off and everything. They were changing a tool out, right?
Hmm.
And so the response becomes, you get with the team, and the same day we
Hmm.
had talked to the team. They came up with really a great solution to eliminate that pinch point for us. And then, within 24 hours, we had it fully documented with training and everything, right? So it's in that culture is one that I haven't found at other places that I've worked.
No, you don't hear it. You don't
You
hear it or
just
see it. Yeah.
no, no. So, and that's not only with the work I do, but obviously the really great resource we have in Mortensen and their safety team to guide us. They have a lot of experience to help us out and be able to do the right thing. And then our team members being willing to jump in and suggest solutions, right? They're
Sure.
the ones doing it.
And they're heard.
Y-
They know that they're going to
Yeah.
be heard. Yeah.
Right, right, right.
Yeah. Well, very cool. Man, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I wish we could have done this a lot back when it was super, or maybe even when you were closer to here and we get you in studio. We will work to do that next time.
Yeah.
How do folks get a hold of you if they would like to ring you up or ask you a question?
Yeah, yeah. So always happy to provide tours or answer questions or any of that. This is a growing industry, and we're really excited to talk to other people who have FrameCAD machines and see factories. We'd love
Hmm.
to swap we'd love to swap a tour.
Okay.
One for one.
Cool.
So we've got our website,
Okay.
BLUvera.com.
Okay.
And then, I think that's probably the easiest way to get a hold of
Okay.
us.
Okay.
And then we'll get you to the right person from there. The other thing too is we're a growing organization, and so we've got some open positions too
Oh,
within
excellent.
BLUvera here. So we're looking for a few things right now. We're looking for a safety engineer to be focused specifically on BLUvera and what we're
Hmm.
doing here. We're looking for a quality engineer, and then always production workers, production forepersons, and then even we have a data centers BLUvera facility in Salt Lake, and so we're looking for a manufacturing engineer out there too. So all of those job postings, if someone's interested in that, those can be found at mortensen.com/careers.
Okay. And it's BLUvera is spelled BLUvera, as you see in the
Yes,
background.
you got it.
Okay. Awesome. Listen, I cannot thank you enough. We'll catch up soon.
Awesome.
And so, for now, as we always close, we've all built it the old way. Now let's go build it better.